Have you ever wondered why certain people from your past still haunt your thoughts even years after they've left your life? In the modern world, casual sex has become a cultural norm. One-night stands, multiple partners, fleeting encounters, they're sold as liberation. Apps make strangers accessible within minutes. Society promises pleasure without consequence. Yet beneath this surface of pleasure lies something far more disturbing, something that continues long after the physical act has ended. Master Dainanji, drawing from ancient spiritual knowledge, reveals what most of us never see. Every sexual act silently weaves an invisible cord between two souls. These are not harmless memories or passing emotions. They are astral tubes, energetic umbilical cords that bind two individuals on a level far deeper than flesh. With each sexual encounter, these tubes grow thicker, stronger, more permanent. They do not vanish with time. They remain active, silently transferring emotional currents, psychic vibrations, and karmic energies long after the relationship has ended. What starts as innocent passion quickly evolves into a spiritual entanglement. And over time, as more partners accumulate, these unseen cords transform into a chaotic web, one that silently poisons future marriages, destroys trust, and even disturbs the emotional stability of future children. This is not just about morality. This is about energy. This is about your soul. We live in a time where modern culture has redefined intimacy into nothing more than a recreational act. In bars, on apps, across college campuses, and even within workplaces, casual sex is promoted as a harmless pursuit of pleasure, liberation from outdated moral structures. Popular media romanticizes one-night stands, portraying them as symbols of freedom, empowerment, and self-expression. From Hollywood movies to viral TikToks, we are constantly fed the narrative that physical intimacy can exist without emotional consequence. But beneath this shiny surface hides a dangerous illusion that most people never recognize until the damage is already done. Our society has stripped sex of its sacred power. It teaches young men and women that multiple partners are a rite of passage, a badge of confidence, or even a form of personal growth. Apps like Tinder, Bumble, and OnlyFans turn human connection into a marketplace, reducing the soul to a commodity and turning intimacy into entertainment. But what no one tells you is that behind every fleeting encounter, forces are at work that cannot be seen with the naked eye. Energies are exchanged, bonds are formed. Invisible spiritual contracts are written in the astral realm, binding souls together long after the physical bodies part ways. This culture of instant gratification does not liberate us. It enslaves us to invisible chains that silently pull on our emotions, disturb our peace, and cloud our future relationships. And tragically, most only awaken to these consequences when their hearts' marriages or even their children begin to suffer. Every sexual encounter is far more than two bodies joining for a brief moment of pleasure. What most people do not realize is that something far deeper occurs beneath the physical act, emerging that reaches into the spiritual dimension. According to Master Dainanji's teachings, every time a man and woman unite in sexual intercourse, an astral tube, an invisible umbilical cord, forms between their souls. This cord exists within the subtle energy field or astral body, which extends far beyond what modern science can observe. It is not metaphorical, it is real, and its effects are profound. The astral tube is like a living conduit, approximately 6 inches in diameter, forming instantly during sexual union. Through this tube, emotional vibrations, psychic impressions, and spiritual energies flow back and forth between both individuals, creating a permanent channel that connects their very beings. Even if the sexual encounter was brief, even if no love existed between the two, the astral cord still forms. And with each repeated sexual encounter between the same partners, this cord becomes stronger, denser, and more deeply woven into their spiritual fabric. While the physical body forgets, the astral body remembers. This is why individuals often feel emotionally tied to past partners even after years of separation. Thoughts, memories, or unexplained longings can surface unexpectedly, often triggered by subtle energetic echoes traveling through the still active astral cord. What was once a moment of passion silently evolves into a lifelong spiritual tether, one that few understand and even fewer know how to release. Sexual intercourse has always been viewed by modern society as a purely physical exchange, a moment of passion, pleasure, and intimacy that begins and ends within the boundaries of the flesh. But ancient spiritual wisdom reveals a far deeper reality that most people are blind to. Every sexual act creates an energetic bond between two souls, a bond that exists on the astral plane. This bond is known as an astral tube, a subtle, invisible umbilical cord that forms between the man and woman the moment their bodies unite. Unlike fleeting emotions or fading memories, this astral tube establishes a real and lasting energetic channel between both individuals. Approximately 6 inches in width, this etheric cord connects their Muladhara chakras, the root energy centers tied to survival, primal instincts, and reproduction. Each time sexual intimacy is repeated between the same partners, the astral tube grows thicker, more fortified, and increasingly difficult to sever. Over time, this tube becomes a powerful conduit for emotions, desires, thoughts, and even subconscious impulses to travel back and forth long after the relationship has physically ended. This is why so many people find themselves haunted by the presence of former lovers, why memories suddenly resurface, why certain names still sting, and why some wounds never fully heal. The astral body does not forget. Even when two people are separated by thousands of miles, their energetic connection persists quietly, transmitting emotional currents across space and time. What the modern world dismisses as closure is in truth often a denial of these invisible spiritual chains that still remain firmly intact beneath the surface. Every time two people come together sexually, the astral tube connecting them does not simply remain static. It grows, thickens, and becomes more deeply entrenched with every repeated act. What starts as a thin cloud-like connection slowly solidifies into a powerful energetic pipeline, strengthening the psychic bond between them with each encounter. This is not something that fades with time. In fact, the more often sexual intimacy is repeated, the more deeply these two souls become woven together on levels that far transcend conscious awareness. Even if love is absent, even if the encounters are purely physical, the astral tube does not discriminate. It absorbs every emotional frequency exchanged during the act: desire, lust, loneliness, manipulation, and sometimes even darker energies, such as deceit or domination. All of it gets imprinted into the growing cord like emotional residue trapped in the walls of an unseen tunnel. Over time, these repeated connections create an overwhelming web of entanglement that quietly drains emotional peace clouds' future relationships and destabilizes the soul's inner harmony. The person may convince themselves they've moved on, but their astral body remains firmly attached to their past partners. When one partner experiences sudden longing, grief, or even intense lust, the other may unexpectedly feel it as if pulled by invisible hands. This is why people often struggle with lingering attachments years after a relationship has ended. What they experience as emotional confusion is in reality the persistent activity of a reinforced astral cord that has grown stronger through repetition. Modern society may teach us that sex without commitment is harmless, but the astral world bears witness to a different truth. Every repetition tightens the knot, forging bonds that the soul must eventually confront, cleanse, or carry into future lifetimes if left unresolved. The astral tube was never intended to serve the chaotic and reckless purposes that modern society has assigned to sexual behavior. Its original sacred purpose was far more profound. In its highest form, the astral tube was divinely designed to serve as a stabilizing force, a spiritual bridge created to unite a man and a woman within the sanctity of marriage. When two individuals bound by love and commitment enter into sexual union within the sacred covenant of marriage, the astral tube becomes a vessel of immense spiritual power, facilitating trust, emotional depth, loyalty, and unwavering support through life's inevitable storms. This energetic cord allows the couple to share thoughts, intuitions, and feelings on levels beyond words. It becomes the very channel through which true intimacy flows, an intimacy that is not merely physical, but emotional, intellectual, and spiritual. Over time, this sacred cord weaves the two souls together, allowing them to function as one mind and one heart. In moments of difficulty, this connection becomes their invisible strength, a conduit of silent understanding, sacrifice, and shared resilience that binds them closer rather than tearing them apart. Even when couples face hardships, this deeply forged astral bond grants them the spiritual gravity to remain loyal, supportive, and enduring. They sense each other's unspoken pains and silent fears even across great distances. Their unity transcends proximity because their souls remain linked in an unbreakable sacred partnership. This is why true marriages built upon purity and mutual respect so often endure where others collapse. The astral tube in its divine design was meant to build lifelong companionship, emotional security, and the spiritual foundation necessary for raising stable, healthy families. Yet tragically, this powerful instrument designed for union and harmony has been distorted by the modern world's casual misuse of sexual energy, leaving countless souls spiritually fragmented, emotionally unstable, and unable to experience the profound joy marriage was originally meant to bring. In the pursuit of fleeting pleasure, many unknowingly weave a complex spiritual web that grows far beyond their conscious understanding. Each time a person engages in casual sex with a new partner, a fresh astral tube is formed, linking their souls in the unseen realms. While the body may forget the encounter, the astral world does not. These tubes remain intact, forming multiple energetic bridges that connect the individual to every past partner, regardless of how brief or meaningless the encounter may have seemed. Over time, this accumulation of astral tubes creates a dense, tangled network, a spiritual chaos that binds the person to many others simultaneously. Every emotional imprint, every desire, every unresolved feeling circulates through these open channels, creating a continuous exchange of psychic energy. The person becomes energetically scattered, emotionally fragmented, and spiritually exhausted, often without even knowing why. They carry within them not just their own burdens, but the vibrations, wounds, and emotional residues of every person they have connected with. Worse still, these connections are not limited by distance or time. A former partner's longing, anger, or jealousy can ripple through the astral cords, triggering unexpected emotions, restlessness, or even renewed temptations. The person may find themselves haunted by intrusive thoughts or irrational emotional swings, unaware that these are echoes traveling across active astral lines still tied to unresolved past encounters. What was designed by nature to be a sacred singular bond between husband and wife has, through casual sex, become a tangled spiritual web, one that destabilizes not only the individual's emotional health, but poisons their ability to form deep, lasting connections in future relationships. The very foundation for peace, love, and family unity, becomes increasingly fragile as more astral cords accumulate silently, pulling them further from inner harmony. Every time two people engage in intimacy without commitment, they set into motion invisible forces that far exceed their conscious awareness. The astral tube that forms between them becomes not just a channel for connection, but also a conduit for powerful emotional and karmic exchanges. In the early stages, these connections may carry feelings of excitement, hope, or passion, but when the relationship ends, whether through betrayal, abandonment, or loss, those same tubes begin to transmit darker currents: jealousy, resentment, bitterness, and even hatred. The individual who feels used, rejected, or deceived may have once trusted deeply, believing promises of love or long-term commitment. When those hopes are shattered, the emotional energy trapped within the astral tube begins to decay, transforming into dense toxic vibrations. These negative frequencies do not disappear. They circulate between both parties through the still active cord-keeping wounds open and unresolved long after physical separation. The more intense the emotional betrayal, the thicker and more destructive the energy within that astral tube becomes. This continuous flow of emotional toxins destabilizes the mental, emotional, and even physical well-being of both individuals. Anxiety, depression, irrational fears, and emotional instability can all manifest as a result of these unhealed spiritual wounds, but the consequences do not stop there. On a karmic level, these unresolved attachments generate new layers of spiritual debt, binding the individuals into repetitive cycles of suffering, guilt, and retribution that may follow them not only in this life but into future incarnations. What began as a casual encounter leaves behind a spiritual burden far heavier than most can comprehend. The astral plane records everything. Nothing is forgotten. In the realm of karma, every action carries weight, and every bond, whether sacred or reckless, demands accountability. As these karmic threads multiply, so too does the complexity of one's spiritual path, making healing, clarity, and future happiness increasingly difficult to attain. Most people believe that time heals all wounds. They assume that with enough months or years-old relationships fade into distant memories. But the astral realm operates by far different laws. When two people engage in sexual union, the astral tube created between them does not dissolve simply because the relationship ends. Instead, this invisible cord remains active for a minimum of 12 years from the last physical encounter. And depending on its density fueled by the depth of emotions, the number of encounters and the intentions involved, it can persist for decades, even lifetimes. These enduring astral tubes act like spiritual highways, continuously transmitting subtle energies back and forth between the former partners. Long after physical contact ceases, emotional echoes continue to pass through these channels, waves of longing, regret, guilt, or even resentment. A former lover's sudden yearning or emotional instability can send ripples down the astral cord, triggering unexpected emotions, dreams, or impulses in the other person, often leaving them confused, restless, or emotionally drained without understanding why. Even if one of the individuals sincerely repents, adopts a virtuous lifestyle, or begins practicing spiritual discipline, the astral tube does not immediately vanish. According to Master Dainanji's teaching, it requires at least 12 years of celibacy prayer and dedicated purification for each cord to gradually disintegrate. And if sexual contact is repeated with that same person or another partner, the cycle resets, reinforcing or creating new astral bonds once again. These long-lasting energetic attachments quietly erode one's inner peace and spiritual clarity, making future relationships fragile and spiritual progress far more challenging. The individual becomes like a tree weighed down by countless invisible chains, each representing an unresolved tie to the past. Without conscious effort to purify these connections, the soul remains entangled, unable to rise fully into its higher potential. Even when two people have physically separated and live entirely different lives, the astral tube that connects them remains alive, silent, yet fully functional. Through this unseen energetic cord, thoughts, longings, and emotions continue to travel like whispers through a hidden channel, bypassing distance, time, and conscious intention. One partner may experience a sudden surge of emotion, a longing,